Audio.etc is proudly supported by Auto Sound and Security.
Hey guys, how's it going? James here from Audio.etc. Sorry about the background noise. Got the engine running on the car and a whole bunch of music playing around the shop because today it is the final 100 songs of the New Zealand Rock 1500 countdown, and it's like the absolute best 100 rock songs of all time voted by all of New Zealand. So we're really enjoying the music today. But today I want to show you my DLRs, my daytime running lights, that over the past couple of days I've just installed in my car. I didn't film the install process just because it was not particularly easy, and it took me a few sort of goes to try and work out how I wanted to do it as I was, going along doing it. But now that they're done, I'm going to kind of do a showcase, show you guys how I did it, explain a bunch of stuff about them, what they are and how it wired up and stuff like that. Because I didn't just, whack them in and hook them to ignition or something, stupid like that. I actually did a lot more work with getting them wired up in the way I wanted. So yeah, that's what I'm doing today. So let me pop the bonnet here. I'll never be sick of those gas struts. They're the best thing under a bonnet. So much better than having to hold it up and put a stay up or something. So the reason I've got the engine going is because I managed to wire these up in a way that they only go when the engine is running. I don't need them to be on when the car is on accessory or even ignition. I just want them to only be on when the engine is running. And that took a fair bit of, searching around for an ideal power supply. But basically, wonder if you guys will be able to see them. Let's just have one quick look at them before I turn them off, because I think it's a bit loud. But you can see here. I'm not sure if these are going to be coming up flickering on the screen on the GoPro or not, because obviously LEDs do have a refresh rate. It just depends on what the GoPro is, seeing it as. I've currently got the GoPro on 60 Hertz, so it's taking a new picture every 60th of a second. So I don't think it'll be flickering too much. Let me turn the engine off so you can hear me a bit better. Speaking of hearing me a bit better, I have got a microphone on the way. I don't have it here. I just recently spent a little bit of money on trying to upgrade my whole GoPro, videoing system. I'm sticking with the GoPro Hero 4 because I do really like it at the moment. I can't yet afford a whole, DSLR or really good video camera or anything yet, so I'm trying to max out my GoPro rig. And I've got one of those aluminium housings on the way that can take a horseshoe mount on top. I've got a cheap eBay shotgun microphone thing on the way. I'm going to see how that goes, and if I'm not happy with the sound quality of it, I'm probably going to fork out for a Rode Video Micro, I think. Probably. I've got a GoPro mic adapter, one of the cheap eBay ones, and if you're interested guys, I might explain, let me know in the comments, I might in my next video explain how I got it working, because I'm sure a lot of you, if you've ever worked with GoPros and then had a cheap microphone adapter, they don't work. They don't work off the bat. You need the genuine GoPro one for it to work. All I had to do is put a resistor in somewhere and got it to work, but that can be for another day. So sound quality should be improving over the next sort of few weeks, but we'll see how we go. So, the lights. So these, actually, I bought those quite a while back, and I did show some of you guys quite a while back that I wanted to install them. These are some other ones, like these are just some plain white ones. Basically all they are is an LED strip inside this rubber flexible housing thing. Yeah, pretty simple. Got them on eBay, they were super cheap. We'll see how long they last. But yeah, so first of all, how I secured them in place and why I put them where I put them. I need to turn this down more because I'm still having to talk really loud. Okay, that's better. Now you can probably hear me a bit better. So first of all, how I secured them in place and why I put them where I did. So initially when I bought these things, what I really wanted to do was have these sorts of things in on this chrome sort of fish hook looking shape inside here. Then after a while I decided, you know what, even if I got that done professionally, I feel like the integrity of the seal between the plastic lens and the light fixture would be compromised. It would get steamy or condensatey in there. It would never be as good as it would be if I just left it. I decided I didn't want to take it apart basically, so I'm leaving that as it is. Then I started thinking about putting lights down inside here and maybe replacing this thing with something that has a halo as well. But spontaneously on Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, I think I just whipped these out and started playing around with them again. And then I found that on top of this light fixture, there's actually a really nice little track, like recessed section here, that these things just sort of sat right into almost perfectly. They are glued, but not with a whole heap. Just along the very front here, I'll see if I can find here. This one looks pretty bad, so this will be the one you'll be easiest to see. Right there, all the way along here in increments. Where is it? There are tiny little dabs of super glue that are just holding this to the front because naturally it wanted to sit more towards the back side. So that's what's holding them in place, and it's working totally fine. And I managed to get this end of the front of both of them kind of just shoved down there a wee bit. I couldn't go any further because there's a bit of plastic in there which is stopping it, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And that's how they're secured there. The wires for both of them come out the top end. No, actually, sorry, they come out the bottom end. It's going to be really hard to see because I've done a really good job of hiding everything away. But the wires come out, they come down under here, and then they sort of end up coming up here. And all along where these cable ties are, the loom is under this thing. And so there's 3 wires coming out of this, a red, a yellow, and a black. Obviously black is ground. Red is the one that you power up to get it to turn white, and there's a yellow one which you power up to get it to turn amber or orange. But before, you don't hook up to that section, it goes to a little 3-pin plug which is around about here somewhere, and then it goes off to a heat shrunk, whereas it's right under, actually there's the plug there. You can see I wrapped it in a tiny bit of foam, just there. And then at about, under here, it's hard, you're not going to be able to see it, but there is a heat shrunk little piece of circuit board that does the timing for the indicators and tells it when to turn on and off basically. It might even be a reducer, who knows. But then the 3 wires come out. The yellow one, quite simply, I did just splice onto the indicator wire inside of there. You can see the little bit of yellow wire there. This is my indicator light, and it's just soldered onto the connection, the positive side of the indicator for that. That part was real simple. The hard part was dealing with powering them. So because these are cheap, I didn't want to be running like up to 14.5 volts through them. I think they're more suited towards the 12 volt side of them. Initially, what did I do initially? Okay, so the first thing I didn't want to do was have them wired up in a way where every time I start the car, there is a voltage spike and then a voltage dip, because when you start the car, the first thing it does is it cranks your alternator into movement. There's often a voltage spike when it goes up before all the load gets dropped onto it. And then it goes down because it's trying to start a motor, and it goes down to like 8 or 9 or 10 volts or whatever your car does. And I wanted to avoid that great big up and down thing, because that sort of thing to me is what kills LEDs, cheap ones anyway. If you hook them up and they straight to it, they do work to begin with, but I feel like their lifespan is shortened. And the reason I've got a strong opinion on that is because I don't know if any of you guys remember or have watched it, but quite a while ago I did a video on installing some LEDs on the inside of my car. I put one inside my center console and another one in my glove box. The one in the center console has died twice. I've replaced it, I've put it in, replaced it, that one died again, I haven't replaced that one since, and the one in the glove box died as well. And that's because I just hooked them straight to the illumination circuit of the car, and I think it was that up and down spiking that it really didn't like. So how to get them wired up in a way where they don't turn on unless we're like at a stable idling voltage. After a bunch of probing around, oh, that tape is coming off. After a bunch of probing around the engine bay in the fuse box where the relays are, there's some more relays over here where the alternator is. I came up with two solutions. I actually found a wire over here in this auxiliary relay box. I don't even know what this does. I think it's to do with engine management, and that one's just all the power supplies for everything. That's all permanent stuff. There's no ignition sources or anything in there. But I found a switching ignition wire in here that I was thinking of using to turn them on and off, so that they only turn on with ignition. And then I also found on the alternator here, here's the main output, and this little plug here has 3 wires on it. One of them is constant 14 volts. The middle one, I'm not 100% sure what that is, but this one on the right here, which is black with the yellow stripe, after testing that, I found that there is nothing on it until you start the car, and then once the alternator has started, there is constant 12 volts coming out of it. Not 14, just 12, like 12.3 or something like that. So I thought, well, that's ideal. And it's great because there's no voltage coming out of it unless the car is started physically, which means that if I use that for my turn on situation for the LEDs, the turn on trigger, then the LEDs were going to turn on until we were at a nice resting idle voltage where we've avoided the whole, part where we start the car and the voltage goes up and down. So I thought that's great. So I ended up using that wire, and what I got over here is a couple of things for turning them on and regulating voltage. The reason I did all this mainly is just because these are cheap LEDs, and I thought, you know what, they're probably just going to die after a while. So I've done the best thing, what I think the best I can do to extend their life by giving them a really reliable voltage that doesn't go up and down, That was the whole point of all this. So at the bottom, what this thing is, this piece of plastic, it's actually a pop stopper. Basically what the point of it is, in some situations where you install an amplifier into an old car or any car where you're using a high level voltage input or a cheap stereo or a factory stereo or something, sometimes you do that and you get a pop out of the speakers when you first turn the amplifier on, or sometimes you get it when you turn it off and you get a pop out of all the speakers. This is designed to prevent that by putting a delay on the remote wire for the amplifier, either when you turn it on or turn it off. Unfortunately, you can't have both. It's got separate wires, so it's got red 12 volts constant in, black for ground, green, which is the trigger wire, the trigger input of it, and then it's got 2 outputs, a white, which is which has a delayed turn off, or blue, which is a delayed turn on. So if you were getting a pop when you turn your stereo or your car off, then you would use the white wire because it would delay the turn off time for the amplifier. Or if you're getting it when you turn it on, use blue because it delays the time that it takes the amp to turn on. So what I did, I used the blue output, the delay turn on wire, to power these headlights, because I wanted the headlights, the LED lights, I wanted them only to turn on once the car was running. So that 2-second delay avoids all of that cranking time and engine up and idle up and down and stuff. So that's great. But then after I had wired that in, the next problem I encountered was I was getting flickering from the LEDs. We tried a bunch of stuff to try and diagnose what was causing it. Ultimately we found that on the power supply, the main power supply that they are using is this yellow wire here going to a 3 amp fuse. Where this 3 amp fuse is, there was nothing in the hole, it was just a one-sided fuse hole, so I've just used that to put a fuse on it. A wire comes down out of the fuse box and up into here for the input. And measuring it, we were getting obviously 14.5 volts at idle, which is fine, and also about 0.1 volts AC. And we think that 0.1 volts AC is mainly what was causing all the flickering, because it means that the voltage is slightly going up and down. Even though it's around 14 volts, it's going up and down a wee bit, and that's causing the flickering. And it just worried me a wee bit that it was going to shorten the lifespan of these LEDs. Again, something I didn't want. So we tried, what did we do? We couldn't find a source of power anywhere that didn't have that AC on it. It must just be a byproduct of the alternator or the engine noise or something like that. We tried an inline filter. That didn't get rid of anything. We tried diodes, one of them and two of them, and a capacitor in parallel with it as well. Like we tried a variety of combinations with diodes and capacitors to try and iron out the voltage. I tried using a resistor wheel to slowly increase the resistance to reduce the voltage, because I thought maybe the 14.5 volts was on the upside of volts what these could handle. Maybe that was causing it. Didn't help. What I ended up doing, I thought the last straw was this little circuit board here, and what this is a regulated voltage reducer. We normally use these in situations where we're wiring up factory car cameras to our stereos, because pretty much every Japanese reversing camera that I've come across, we've been wiring up to a new stereo, has had a lowered power supply rating. For instance, like they pretty much all take about 6 volts. I have come across ones that take 3 and ones that take 8 volts, but most of them take 6 volts. So what we do is we put one of those in line to reduce 12 volts or 14 volts down to 6 volts. And it's great because no matter the input voltage, this is the regulated part, it will always put out 6 volts. So I just hook it up on the bench, doesn't matter what power supply. I have a multimeter and my test lamp hooked up to it to simulate a load. And then right on top of this little blue thing here, see where my fingertip is? There's a tiny little flathead screw bolt thing. It's not a bolt, it doesn't go in and out, but it does turn infinitely. And you just adjust that and you watch the voltage on the multimeter slowly go down. And once you've got it set, and it's very, very precise and very accurate, like you have to do heaps of turns just to get a volt to go down. So you can be very accurate with it. And you turn that down to the voltage you get, you're happy with it, you can disconnect it, and then no matter what voltage input you put into it, I think they can even handle up to 26 volts input, it'll still regulate out at a nice smooth rate the voltage that you want. So what I've done is taken the output side of this thing, which is of this pop stopper, which turns the LEDs on after the engine is started. The output side of that goes straight into this voltage regulator reducer, and I've got it set to do about 12.8 volts out, because I found that I hooked this all up, temporary, just real quick, and adjusted it as I went, and I noticed as I slowly turned down the voltage, the flickering actually went away. Like the visible flickering of the LEDs went away, and I was like, sweet. So I hooked up the multimeter and checked out what I was putting out, and I noticed as I was turning that down, not only did it reduce the DC voltage, but it reduced the AC voltage as well. So I went from having a nearly 0.1 AC volts coming out of it to 0.03 AC volts coming out. And I'm happy with that because that's very little, and it got rid of the visible flickering, and the LEDs are still going at a nice high brightness, on 12.7 volts DC. So this is why I didn't really film the install of it. It was kind of a whole lot of figuring out as we went, a whole lot of trying different things. It would have just been really tedious to try and film it, but now that I've got a working system, I'm showing you guys now. So basically, now that you know everything, I got the sort of order in which things go. So obviously, I can actually show you. No, I don't want to take that fuse out actually. So basically, power is, so under this little fuse, there is a terminal for a fuse on the right hand side there, but not the left. So this isn't putting power back into anything, but it is coming out of that little connection through the 3 amp fuse, which is enough to be protecting both this and that and all the LEDs. Up through this wire then just goes down through this spare hole in the fuse box. Same as what I did for when I did my air horn install, it just goes down. I actually can get this whole fuse assembly up and out of this big case, and I can get to all the wires underneath. The wire goes down. There is a tiny wee hole in the very bottom of this case thing, just under there somewhere. It's very hard, you can't see it. But basically that comes out and goes into this as a permanent power supply. The earth goes down underneath it all the way under here, it pops back up, and it's this little crimp here. The trigger wire, so the trigger wire that I was talking about before that I decided to get off the alternator, I didn't get it from here. I undid about 50 million layers of tape around this section dismantled all of this assembly, got the 2 layers of conduit off, and ultimately separated out the wires. Found the wire that is here, back here, spliced on a green wire. It goes into the fuse box, out the same hole is solder connection in there, under there, and then comes up and into this. And then the blue wire, you can see, actually, you almost might be able to see it, is right in there. So it actually goes straight out of there and then is soldered to this circuit board. There is also a black wire soldered onto the circuit board, which I just spliced onto the earth for this unit here, so it's basically grounded there. And then we've got 2 sets of output here. I decided just to use 2 because, like, you know, 1 for each light. It's just taped up and then it separates off out. You can see it separates there. One of them goes up behind this cover. It's tester taped all the way on, and then now it's tester taped over, but at some point here along here it's solder connections, and you can see it goes to the red and the black there, which is the earth and the white light supply, and that turns that on. And then this one is much longer, goes down, and then you can see down in there that conduit that's moving. It goes into conduit, goes along, up, all the way along here, cable tied the whole way, jumps this little connection here, cable tied under here. Oh, I put this back on so I can't show you, but basically the same thing. That then connects onto the red and the black for this white light, and the yellow, which you can see here, is just soldered onto the the indicator positive supply. And that's how they're wired up. Overly complicated for some simple daytime running lights, but I wanted to do a really good job. I'm very happy with how they turned out. I think I'm actually extra happy with how they turned out, because I was thinking, even if I do get them inside the housing here, they're still not going to look super OEM. They're going to be pretty obvious. But I'm really happy with how they turned out, because in this sort of setup, I think they look the most OEM that I could have achieved with this car. Unless I bought some $400 or $500 whole light replacement that's got built-in daytime running lights. But yeah, that's how they're wired up. That's my little showcase. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer how I did things. Yeah, very happy with how they turned out. Let me give you one last show of what they look like. I'm gonna sit the camera down here, and I'm gonna start her up, and you'll see what I mean. So you see how they only turned on once the engine was started. And this little thing actually has LEDs in it to tell you whether it's going to delay on or delay off. And so yeah, they look pretty decent. They're very bright with the bonnet open. They're not very bright when you got the bonnet shut. And out in daylight, obviously, they're still not as bright as factory ones, but I'm happy with how they've turned out. I'll show you the indicators. So if I turn the right-hand indicator on, so it's turning on and off. The orange LEDs inside here aren't that bright, and they aren't really aligned inside the rubber very well, but that's okay. I mean, the factory one still works. I have seen people install these in cars before, and they say, oh, maybe you should disconnect the OEM indicator as well, so you don't have that, like, this slow turn on and off one as well as the fast one. But I think it looks best like this. This is all back together. I can close this now. The thing I really like is how the light from the LED actually has gone down into the lens of this. And you can see it kind of illuminates the whole thing. Like, there's light down here, but the light is only up here. So it actually kind of goes through the whole lens and illuminates a lot of stuff. Like, I can see reflections of the light in this, in the high beam reflector and all around here. But the light's only up there, so it's worked really well. It's like by refraction, it's gone around the whole assembly. And it looks like there's a light behind all of here, but there isn't. It stops the light stops there, but it's managed to get the whole way around the edge of the light almost. So that's what it looks like. If I turn the indicator off, it just goes back to white. That indicator and back to white thing, that's built in with these lights. That wasn't something clever I had done. It's part of that little circuit board that I've got hidden away that turns them on and off. again, sorry that I didn't film the whole install, guys, but I really wanted to just sort of, it was taking me a while and a few tries to get things right. So I thought it's just best to sort of get it right, and then I'll show you how I've done everything afterwards. So yeah, that's what I've done with my daytime running lights. I finally can check them off my list. Tell me what you guys think of them in the comments. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Yeah, before I say goodbye, a couple of updates. This coming week should be pretty interesting and fun, because a couple of things have arrived for me. I haven't paid for them yet, but you know. This is a massive Dynamat mega pack. Really inconveniently packaged. I don't know why they don't put it in a more simple Dynamat package, but basically 9 pieces of 24 by 48 Dynamat, 72 square feet. This should be enough to do almost all of my car, I think. So that's arrived, and I haven't unpackaged them yet, but over here in the corner, those are my Focal PS165 F3 speakers. In case some of you guys are new and don't know what I'm talking about, it is these speakers here. So at the moment, this is what I've got in the front of my car, PS165 FX, with a 6.5 inch mid bass and a 1 inch tweet. I'm upgrading to basically the same thing, but a 6.5 inch mid, a 1 inch tweet, and a 3 inch mid. Mid bass, mid tweet. That's what I want. So yeah, that's what's coming up. I wonder if I should really try and finish the tweeter pods first before I do put the tweeters in there. I think I should. You guys were really good at voting on what you think I should do with the tweeter pods. There's a pretty overwhelming vote for just stick with what they look like now, which I'm quite happy about because that means I have to do less work. But I'm trying to decide whether I should do another coat of black on them or something. I'm still quite keen to try and wrap them in, you know, adhesive vinyl, like, you know, sticky stuff, because I think it would just get rid of a lot of the obvious imperfections. Like it's still very clear to me that it looks like it's been made out of plasticine or something along those lines. Like I can see dents and stuff, and I feel like if I wrapped it in that sort of decal vinyl, it would get rid of a lot of that. I'm quite keen to try it. I might just order off Trade Me or something 1 square foot of satin black. Yeah, I might do that, because I'm pretty sure with that stuff, if it doesn't work, if I can't get it to work, it's quite easy to peel back off. And even if I do peel it back off and it takes some paint with it, I can just respray it again, you know, no biggie. So I think I will try that before I put the tweeters in. But yeah, the tweeters are going to go in these custom pods that I've built, and the mids are going to go up on top of the dash here, where my tweeters currently are. So yeah, that's what's going on. There should be an exciting week ahead. Sorry I haven't uploaded that much recently. You guys, there's just been not much going on for me to film, and I don't want to have to force the filming. I want to be excited about it when I do it, because it means that my videos ultimately end up, I think, better if I'm excited about the content that I'm filming and I'm excited to go home and edit it and put together and share with you guys. If I just film stuff for the sake of, you know, making another video, I'm not going to appear as excited in the video, and I think that's a big part of what makes them enjoyable. If I'm just like, hey guys, you know, another video, it's a Corolla, stereo, da da da, I think that's not going to be an enjoyable video. So that's why I haven't been filming this much recently. There's just been not much that I thought was worth filming. But this is Judy. I film everything to do with her, apart from, as I've already explained in this case, the install bit. So that's it. That's going to be this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know in the comments what you think of my DLRs, how they look. I'm very happy with how they turned out. I think they've turned out better than I could have imagined they would. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, because I'm sure you hear a lot of YouTubers say this. If the more likes it gets, the more YouTube is going to push my videos out to a wider audience. And that is the ultimate goal of almost every YouTuber out there. And also, in case you're a new subscriber and haven't heard me say it, because I try not to say this too much, I don't want to force it upon you guys, but I do have a Patreon support page if you want to help support my channel. You know, donate just $1 or $2 here or there. It really helps me, really motivates me to make more videos like this sort of thing. Enables me to, you know, get better filming equipment, better car audio equipment, and that means better content for you guys. So the link is in the description and will be on a card at the end of this video. Just check it out. Even if you don't want to become like a donating patron, if you just make an account, then you can follow my Patreon account because I actually post regular updates there showing what's going on before it ever hits YouTube. With that being one of the longest outros in history, thank you so much for watching today, guys. Choose to be happy, and I will catch you next week when I'm hopefully going to be starting dynamating and sound deadening my car. I'll see you then. Kite Ano.